Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're diving into an important topic tonight, boundaries around the holidays and in eating disorder recovery. My name is Danielle Levitine. I'm the Vice President of Admissions and Clinical Services here at Balance, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm joined by Balance founder and CEO, Melainie Rogers, who also uses she, her pronouns. Today, we're shifting the focus to discuss boundaries, a crucial aspect in navigating your eating disorder recovery journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Post Thanksgiving and now pre-Christmas and the holiday season, Dee, boundaries are absolutely at the forefront of conversations with our clients. So what we wanted to tackle today is talking about these really important behaviors, if you will. And we also wanted to let viewers know that this is a safe space. Feel free to share thoughts and comments, keep it positive.
With the holidays around the corner, we understand it can be a cheerful time for many, but those struggling with eating disorders, it can be a really foreboding season, especially when it comes to family, especially when it comes to friends who are not fully able to grasp our boundaries in eating disorder recovery. I want to start with the basics, Mel. What are boundaries and why are they so crucial in eating disorder recovery?
Exactly. I like to think of boundaries as like invisible fences. They're fences that we put up to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. And, for many of our clients before recovery, they may not even realize what boundaries are. And then the work during recovery is learning where I need boundaries and with whom and at what times, and then building on keeping those boundaries at the right level, if you will, to keep some people out or comments out, and then to let other things in.
I really like to talk to clients about how setting boundaries is a means of self-care. Your outpatient team or supports might be encouraging you over the holidays, increase your self-care, get more time for yourselves. And a lot of people don't consider boundaries a possibility for how to do that. Setting boundaries are an invitation to strengthen our relationships with others. There's even progression in boundaries, which are used to keep us in a safe space. Boundaries can adapt when we feel safe or no longer activated by certain individuals or behaviors. A lot of the time, when we start off towards the journey of recovery, our boundaries don't exist or they're pretty weak. As
Yeah.
we go through treatment, we learn how to keep some people out and other people in, similar to that invisible fence you were talking about. We want to find sustainable, lifelong relationships where boundaries are working. That's always what we're doing here at Balance, finding a sustainable way to get through. Mel, I wanted you to particularly go over the 5 types of boundaries that individuals might encounter.
Absolutely. These are kind of 5 key ones. They're certainly not exhaustive, but first and foremost, physical boundaries, which involves personal space and also touch. Emotional boundaries, which are about our feelings and our emotional health. Then we have sexual boundaries, which of course is around intimacy and intimate situations. Material boundaries around our belongings. So for example, if we have a friend or a sister who likes to borrow your favorite dress, some material boundaries there. And then time boundaries, boundaries around how we choose to allocate our time and use our time versus someone else having the expectation that our time is always available to them, as an example.
Absolutely. And really helpful to kind of break it down so this topic doesn't feel overwhelming. I want to give some more examples so setting boundaries feels attainable to folks. Limiting exposure to triggering content on social media is an example of a way that you can practice setting your boundaries. So, eliminating diet focused media, weight loss before and after pictures, unrealistic body standards, accounts that you follow that might be triggering some more thoughts and emotions than you like.
Yeah.
The holidays are a great time to set that limit. I know we have a great community at Balance and post some really helpful information. That's one step in setting the boundary from what you're going to look at this holiday season. Also, choosing to decline invitations to events that might be centered around food or leaving the table when body related comments come up. All of that we're going to talk about some more, but is possible for you. Communicating the need for privacy, navigating comments around what's on your plate during meal times, not wanting to eat when everyone else is. You really want to individualize a strategy for you that's going to make the holiday successful for you.
Absolutely.
I know that boundaries can be crossed. Things don't always go the way we planned. How does that relate to feeling unsafe in one's body and then might contribute to eating disorder thoughts and behaviors?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Danielle. So when boundaries are crossed, i.e. you've set a boundary, you put up your fence, and then a person has either intentionally or unintentionally just walked straight through it, it can definitely leave you feeling vulnerable. Like, hang on a second, I did the work, I put up the boundary, and then this person has disrespected it or ignored it. And that can leave you feeling angry, frustrated, and certainly unsafe. And so, when you think about that feeling of feeling uncertain or unsafe, and that sense of anxiety that can start to build around those very, very heightened emotions, the eating disorder can then get triggered. And we need that eating disorder to help us then manage those very icky feelings, if you will. So I think it's important that people understand that boundaries can be crossed and will be crossed. And part of the practice, it's actually a practice that you get better at, is resetting the boundary, restating the boundary, and to continue to do that. The other thing, Dee, about when boundaries are crossed, a lot of our clients are not even aware. Like, was my boundary crossed? I'm not sure, because this is a new practice for them. One great litmus test that I like to encourage our clients to think about is to check in with yourself emotionally. And if there's an interaction going on or someone is behaving in a certain way and it's starting to stir up these feelings in you of anger, frustration, I don't feel safe, that's a really good indicator that your boundary has been crossed. And to pay attention to that and then make a change. Say something, remove yourself from the situation, call a friend, do something that will then help you to re-regulate and to reestablish a safe place.
Absolutely. It's important to deal with both the boundaries that others crossed and also explore with ourselves. Is there people pleasing that I wanted to engage in? Was I trying to avoid a potential conflict? Did that take me away from standing up for myself? Building and maintaining boundaries is definitely not easy. Just like all the change that we're doing around here, it takes time and dedication, and we want to encourage you to be as patient with yourself as possible. It doesn't always feel good, but it's definitely worth it in the end. Even if you're just going to experiment a little bit more this holiday season with setting your boundaries and really standing by them, we are in full support to that. You can always talk to a trusted friend, a family member, or an expert in the field. It's helpful to not feel alone in this and work with people together on this. By creating and enforcing boundaries, we slowly come to trust ourselves. Anything that we start practicing over and over starts to become our new normal instead of the eating disorder being the normal.
Exactly, Dee, exactly. So from there, what we'd like to also talk about is that the idea of boundaries having different kind of boundaries at different levels. So I just wanted to also emphasize that we can have boundaries. If you think of boundaries on a spectrum, we can have super rigid boundaries, D, and then we can have, kind of basically no boundary or very, very porous boundaries, meaning that those boundaries are quite weak. And what we want to do often in cases, it depends on the person, the situation, is kind of have a moderately strong boundary, right? Sometimes if we get too overly rigid with a boundary, we can end up being so rigid that it doesn't allow an opportunity to actually then have a relationship with people. So sometimes having too rigid a boundary can actually not be so helpful for you. And that boundary may need to be kind of eased back a little bit. For other people, having porous boundaries is not helpful at all. We might need to strengthen those boundaries. So just to have a sense that boundaries exist on a spectrum, and part of the practice and part of learning how to work with boundaries is understanding with whom can I have kind of slightly less rigid boundaries and who actually maybe I need to have a tougher boundary, and who can I kind of be in between in a softer but strong boundary with?
I know it's a super hard question I have for you next, but our clients that might be practicing boundaries for the first time this holiday season, what's the best way they can ensure their boundaries are going to be respected during festivities with families and friends?
I think the best way that you can kind of set yourself up for success is what I want to say. So one idea is to actually call your sibling, call a friend, call your aunt, call your mum, and say, hey, we're going into this holiday season. We all know the deal. It's the same every single year. This is what happens. And ask ahead of time if this person can maybe support you in holding a boundary. So that's a really good way to try and set yourself up for success, is to have other people involved, and to also have an exit plan, or to have a plan of, if things get crazy and if Uncle Joe says whatever, then I'm going to allow myself to take a 5-minute break and just kind of go outside and clear my head, and maybe my hair. But so those are just a couple of ways that you can plan for success, or plan to set yourself up in the best possible way to let your boundaries be known, hold those boundaries, and also have an escape exit plan if things still become frustrating for you in those big family occasions.
I totally agree. And I love that you're bringing up, just an exit strategy of, I need to take 5 minutes for myself. It doesn't have to be, a huge change when you're setting boundaries for the first time, but just building some space for yourself is so effective. I want to throw in some other tips that I would recommend for clients to think about, because there's a lot of self-reflection in understanding your needs and understanding what would be helpful for you to express. Thinking about what would make me most comfortable in X scenario. What is my plan if I'm not comfortable, and how do I communicate all of this?
Love those 3D. So what would make me the most comfortable? What could I do if I'm not comfortable? And how do I communicate all of this? Those three, fantastic.
Just like you said, we just want to be as prepared as possible. We can't control the future. We can't control what other people are going to say. And we all do our work to accept that. But taking some time to reflect on it before you're going into those holiday meal times, seeing people you haven't seen for a while, being in stressful travel situations, it's definitely worth taking that time.
I love it. That's great, Dee. Absolutely. And from there, I'd like to also give just a couple of examples where you're using those 3 different questions. For example, a big one that comes up for us with our clients is, excuse me, I'm most comfortable when I portion my own plate. So if Uncle Joe plates everyone and that's the ritual, going over and saying, hey, I know this is what you usually do, but I'd like to plate my own this year. And making a gentle ask. And if Uncle Joe says, no, this is what I like to do and this is just how it's going to be, then you might need to restate your ask with a little bit more direction, being more directive, and say, I totally get that. I love that. I'm going to plate my own though, thank you. So it's not really I'm making an ask in that example. So as you can see, just one way of using a scenario, making a request, and then if you need to, restating it. Back to you, Dee.
Absolutely. I want to throw in a little dialectical behavioral therapy into our talk today, because setting boundaries can be hard, and we don't want to go into the holidays with our anxiety at a 10. We want to ask ourselves where our anxiety is on a scale of 1 to 10 and try to bring it down a little bit before we enter that room. But I think it's helpful to think about what you look forward to getting out of the holidays, what's important to you. That might be a way that you're building in what some of your strategies are, potential exit plans. Maybe there is a cousin that you really only see one time a year, or spending time with a grandparent is something that you'll be able to do. So you want to measure out those as much of what would be enjoyable, and what's meeting my needs at the holiday, and how do I balance that out with some more difficult situations and setting the boundaries there.
Absolutely. Love that, Dee. That really fabulous. So from there, I think what we're really talking about as we kind of bring this all together is, boundaries are about understanding your needs, identifying what makes you feel comfortable and uncomfortable, And then, as Dee said, communicating those needs to others are really the main tenets there. And what I'd like to say about consistency is key. So if you set a boundary, keep repeating it, be consistent. And that way people will learn over time, okay, this is not something that works for this person, or I need to be respectful of that. Back to you, Dee.
I totally agree. I think we're going to wrap it up from here. I think this is a super insightful discussion. There's obviously a lot that can come up when we start talking about our boundaries. So think about people that you can talk to, ways that you can get an increase in support. We do have virtual free support groups here at Balance that run twice a month that we definitely welcome you to before and after the holidays. I know you definitely need support around both times. On our website, you can go to balancetx.com/FSG and RSVP there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Dee. And if you're looking for any support, also our admissions team is definitely available, and just a call away on 212-645-6903. So take good care of yourselves, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.